We would like some volunteers though to tell us about what happened in your small group. We will start with, I did number one, so I'm gonna go last, but who would like to talk a little bit about group number two, which was increasing distribution channels beyond farmers markets? Somebody like to volunteer to give us some feedback on that? Oh, absolutely.
Budget is 3 hours.
Fair's done. Okay, so we came up, I should say, good afternoon, my name is Samantha Robinson, I'm with the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. And I was with the group where we talked about increasing distribution channels. And we came up with a number of concerns, and I'm sure one of those is pretty apparent, is competing with the larger chains. Also, we were talking about how there are issues with volume and capital and balancing supply and demand when it comes to distribution. And we actually mentioned, forgive me, we have lots of, we talked about a lot. And we talked about how there aren't really enough farmers. And so how do we increase the number of farmers to actually to meet the supply or meet the demand in order to supply produce. We also talked about farmers not really knowing the business end of farming, how there's a lack of knowledge on that end. We also talked about affordability, and one of the creators of Fresh Moves, Sheila mentioned how there's a challenge when it comes to using local farmers because it's so expensive. And also we talked about how there's a need to accept link cards. I believe that there is a place in McHenry County that actually, or a farmer's market that does accept them, but we need that to be more widespread so that we can, just reach out to other populations that are interested in buying fresh produce. We also talked about how we need to look at farmers markets or farming from a for-profit approach. And we need to perform some sort of cost-benefit analysis around that. And we had a number of examples, Rick Bayless and his restaurant model. We talked about that and how he's able to, I believe, sort of collect produce from a number of farmers and actually use that in his business. And then we also talked about how there is such a need to connect with produce, locally grown produce, and just produce period, how we've just moved so far away from making home-cooked meals, and we have to somehow get back to that. And that plays into demand prompting the supply for locally grown crops. And that's pretty much, that's it. That's a nice summary of what we discussed.
Thank you so much.
Group number three, sharing information and models about urban agriculture. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading. Oh, buying unused land owned privately or by cities.
So, I had a lot of ideas and tried to think about how to summarize this in a nutshell. We had an interesting dynamic from taking notes for kids where we had two counties, both Cook and McHenry, as well as the village of Skokie, who were all kind of grappling with their broad approach to the land that we own. And then we had a couple of practitioners who have had their bumps and scratches from trying to deal with folks in overcoming some of those hurdles. So we also we kind of started out actually talking about a issue that Skokie is facing just around ComEd land, and you've got the electric utility lines, but also you have ComEd actually owning some of the land and how they can get past that hurdle. So we had a resource at Exeter who's their community outreach liaison at ComEd that would be endorsed by contractors to think of there's even any opportunity in Skokie to crack that nut of that major institution and thinking about using their for urban gardening. Because Skokie is pretty landlocked and doesn't have a lot of vacancies, so what's the best approach to using make it, so Cook County is trying to think about their own inventory of publicly owned land, both in unincorporated land as well as partnerships, and being a resource to local communities. We talked a little bit about Cook County maybe being able to be a partner in some sort of co-op that can start on a large acre of land outside of the city of Chicago. It's been an idea that's been bubbling up, and trying to think about that as an opportunity there. We talked a little bit about opportunities in the forest preserve, but don't have a lot of clear understanding of their priorities related to that. We talked a lot about the neighborhood space model of the city of Chicago as having that intermediary between the city and local community organizations to create urban farming, and what are the opportunities to scale that outside of the city of Chicago. It's a new institution. I think the challenge is you can't do it one municipality at a time, but maybe there's a broad mechanism that maybe the county could be involved in supporting, and thinking about a partner that could create similar land lease agreements and things of that nature to bring some capacity. We talked about some cooperative models. I think the group as a whole has talked a little bit about just the land use and zoning requirements of having the different levels when we're addressing land use and approaches to regulations, and making sure that we're addressing the different scales of urban farming in that. Of course, we talked about streamlining the development process with communities, but we didn't have the bullet answer how you do that outside of just bureaucracy. I think that's it. Did we?
We did have one piece on the next page about
Funding resources.
possibly looking at corporations as real sources, partnership, and funding as they increasingly focus on food and less on other things.
And we talked about that both from a standpoint of funding and supporting like craft foods, but also about their land, and very frankly, often there's parking when you go outside of the city of Chicago, and maybe there's opportunities for using their land for parking or partnership.
Number 4, education, public awareness, farmer training, certification.
While they're setting up, are there any more worksheets? We're gonna make one last run to the copier. Raise your hand if you think you may have one that needs copied. Okay, this will be the last one. Thank Lori for all the runs she's done today. Okay, number 4.
Okay, group 4 education. I wasn't there for the beginning. I was in the distribution group and came over here. So when I got there, the focus, we had several people who were interested in community kitchens, or I guess we found out in Chicago they're called shared kitchens, and look at the models for those, because we saw those as maybe a way for education to happen and the public awareness to happen, and it all goes into certification and all of that. We know it's a cultural challenge. We've got a fast food nation, and a lot of this stuff is slow food. And so, you've probably all heard of the slow food revolution, or slow food movement, if you will. And to get people to know what to do with that kale, or those beets, or even the tomatoes in some cases, how to prepare them, how to store them, recipes, and so forth. And we saw community kitchens as a way of doing that as classes. I know we, in our community gardens and Niles, have done classes on recipes and canning and so forth, but also as a way of kind of a cottage industry, of a place where people can go and maybe get training and have that certified kitchen, because that is generally a barrier to, if you're going to try to do this as a market type approach, that you need a licensed certified kitchen to do this in most instances. So those community kitchens can provide that. We talked about various models of doing that. Generally, it seems that you need to have a kitchen manager, and it's gotta be licensed by the health department or wherever the state requires. And apparently in Illinois, the person doing it also must have some sort of license now. I don't think we have that in Michigan. But that's kind of the approach we took, is how do we get the message out there, and how do we provide those resources for those people who are interested in this stuff, but as the first group of distribution said, you know, just, it's off the radar. They get it from the Walmart Supercenter or the supermarket, processed food, fast food, or whatever. So this is a way of not only increasing awareness, but giving them the resources to do something with that food, whether for themselves or for the market.